It really has been too long since I've heard anyone talk about this show / manga. I remember back in 2018 when I first watched this show and I saw everyone making memes, shitposts, or straight up hating on this show for absolute valid reasons. The anime of this thing was too wild to even remember. Back when I first watched it, I loved season 1. It was paced well, had very interesting characters and moments, and it ended with, to this day, one of my favorite episodes in anime ever. Season 2 fucked everything up though by having the most confusing story, plot, and character developments ever. It also had the corniest ending to a season that I've ever seen, and it made me feel nothing but pure disappointment leading up to season 3. Talking about that, it was okay. It adapted, or tried to adapt, Tokyo Ghoul Re, which is about 150 chapters long. Try that in one season, good luck. It wasn't better than season 1 by any means, but it was also not as bad as season 2. It still had too many issues upon issues upon issues, and I think this was the anime that really started this whole the manga is better thing. And it is 7 years later that I can finally say they were absolutely right. In this video, we'll only cover Tokyo Ghoul, what do you even call it? Tokyo Ghoul Classic, Tokyo Ghoul Part 1, Base Tokyo Ghoul. For the simplicity of this video, I'll just refer to Tokyo Ghoul Re as Re. So today we'll only talk about Tokyo Ghoul, since Sui Ishida, who is the creator and the mangaka of this thing, he decided to split this thing into 2 parts, and therefore so will I. Maybe it's also because I literally just finished reading Tokyo Ghoul, but whatever. So Tokyo Ghoul is about Ken Kaneki. He is a kind dude just going to university, living his life. He has this huge passion for books, and he is nothing but an absolute sweetheart. Ken lost his parents from a very young age, and prior to now living alone, he lived with his aunt and her family, which didn't go very well. He isn't all alone though, since he has one person who means everything to him, and that would be the goat Hide. And they both go to this cafe, and he sees this girl that he's kind of crushing on. She's called Rize. They both seem to have similar interests, which would be books. So they go out and nothing goes wrong. They get married, they have some kids. Who the fuck am I even kidding? Rize is a ghoul, and ghouls are monsters that eat humans but also look like them, so you can't tell them apart. And she now wants to eat Kaneki but fails tragically since she finds herself crushed by metal pipes that miraculously fell to the ground. He now has to be taken to a hospital since he's very, very hurt. And after finding out that Rize and him had the same blood type, the doctors transplanted some of her organs into him, making him a half ghoul, half human. The question that is stated here from the very beginning is, will Ken give up his human side to become a ghoul and eat humans, or will he instead do everything in his power to stay human? And this is the base premise of this manga, and it builds on that pretty damn fast as well. From discovering the world of ghouls and all of the people in it, what makes ghouls and gives them their weapons, which are described as kagenas, or something that I will not even try to pronounce here, it all serves for an interesting setting, but more on that later. Because I first and foremost have to talk about Sui Ishida, the man behind this piece of art. And Tokyo Ghoul is definitely his most celebrated work and also his most known work. For all the new gens though, you might know him for Shojin X. Now I actually have the first volume here, and I have to admit that without going too much into review mode for this thing here, because it's not the right time nor place, it's actually pretty fucking decent. I read a good chunk of it when it released back in... I don't have a clue, I'll probably just pop it in right here. But this being the first work that I read from him, it's pretty interesting to compare where he came from and where he stands now. For now though, we'll only stay with Tokyo Ghoul since I want to compare them when I talk about Shojin X when it's eventually going to be finished someday. I mention it because his art style is kind of unique. In Tokyo Ghoul's case, it's excellent when it needs to be, but isn't quite as good when it could have been at other spots. Going back to the phenomenal though, this man is a genius in depicting feelings and emotional breakdowns. May it be because of the different usage of speech bubbles or the paneling, or most importantly, this rough and sketchy art style that serves for nerve-wracking moments. It is perfectly executed within itself, and that also goes for the action, since perspectives are constantly changing and movement is drawn in a clear and easy to follow way. And it looks awesome, but at other times, this manga does tend to get very text heavy, and that wouldn't be as much of an issue if it wasn't for the fact that, together with the pacing, the panels really bore down as well. There are enough spots where we visit this organization meant to kill all ghouls, and it is clear that a lot of these characters needed more time to be as well put together and thought through as other characters are in this series. Because these moments actually serve for perfect spots to end a reading session, which shouldn't be the case. Talking about the characters, going from art to characters, there are a good bunch that I really adore. Ken, for example, is my favorite of the bunch. He's one of those MCs that isn't just the main character because someone has to be. No, he is a star. He's an attraction, or the main dish, whatever you want to put it. His decay and tiptoeing between good and evil is depicted in, again, genius ways. Right after that would have to be Yuzo. Misunderstood by the world, going from an empty vessel unable to feel literally anything to a bearer of pain towards the end, and I loved it. Toka was really interesting at first, but when I was done, she fell off a cliff. I am hoping that she gets more interesting and just more action and depth and less of a damsel in distress type of character when I get to Tokyo Ghoul Re. But for the time being, she leaves me kind of unimpressed and a little bit disappointed. Going to something more positive. As I previously mentioned, the story in general makes so much more sense here than it ever did in season 1 or the entirety of the anime, which is why I actually really fucking digged it. The character moments, and especially those moments when Ken is just a step beneath insane, are amazing. And characters I didn't mention were Amen and Mado, and they are probably the most interesting characters from this whole organization and being the antagonists of ghouls, which I am excited to see more of in comparison to the other members of that organization. Just as a whole, almost everything here is well done. Sure, it definitely had some issues here and there, especially the art can be hit or miss at times, and some characters needed better treatment to stick as much as the rest did, but in its entirety, everything stands solid and has me excited to see where it'll go in Tokyo Ghoul Re, since I don't remember much of what happened there. I remember that Arima was sick as fuck. He also was sicker here than he ever was in the show, but yeah, Tokyo Ghoul is an awesome setup and character study that questions core morals and showcases this brutal world that in its core still has a lot of good in it. It definitely flipped the tide between good and evil consistently throughout, and it really made me think at sometimes who I should cheer for and who I should absolutely despise. And it does all of that while not forgetting or romanticizing any of the brutal depictions and fights and just everything that happens in this world that is basically just fucked up. It isn't perfect per se, but it's still very worth my time, which is why I am giving it an 8.5 out of 10 on an enjoyment scale and an 8 out of 10 as a whole.